I mean, people are definitely getting a little squirrely. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, when do you start? Where do you start training as an actor?
Well, I did a musical theater, community theater production of Oliver when I was a music student, playing the pivotal role of the knife grinder.
Uh
And it
Yeah.
had like an 8-bar solo, very exciting. And then the guy that directed that, an old pal, Jim Caron, was directing at this summer theater in Big Fork, Montana, looking for a music director. So I got the gig as the music director, and then they asked if I'd also audition for the shows, and I was unwisely cast as the lead in Brigadoon.
Yeah.
Because I could sing, and that was the beginning of me being a terrible but passionate and willing to learn young actor.
So not mediocre, but truly bad.
Oh, absolutely awful, and such a blessing that there's no video from those days.
But you could sing, right?
I could sing, and I had hair. And so I did a lot of sort of musical leading man things. I was there for four years during college and after college, going back to the Big Fork Summer Playhouse, doing my thing and learning and having some great mentors, Jim Caron and Todd Peters, and got to work with some really wonderful directors who were sort of age appropriate and taught me how to be less terrible.
So you mean as an actor?
As an actor and a human being, yeah.
And so, because I when I watch a lot of your roles, and I've watched your work, you seem to be like a sort of like almost like a practical actor. Like it seems like you've got a set of tools that you apply, and you transform your emotional spectrum appropriately and your intensity appropriately. It seems like that. It seems like you lock in a certain way.
Well, and I've learned certainly from a lot of people since then too. I mean, up to and including Damien Chazelle, and some of the great directors that I've had an opportunity to work with, Jason Reitman and the Coen brothers and Sam Raimi. And
so you learned something from all the directors. They actually mold you somehow.
I think so. Certainly back in my theater days, working with Jerry Zaks on Broadway, and one of the things I preach and try to practice is, to be open to learning something new every day at work or every day, whatever, in life.
So what is the sort of trajectory? After Montana, where do you go to pursue acting?
Really, a lot of people from Montana did what I did and went to Seattle, which was kind of the nearest, big city with especially at that time, late 70s, a real burgeoning performing arts community there. And,
yeah.
Stumbled into my union card, actors equity card at Seattle Rep, and I was in Seattle for almost 5 years before I finally got up the nerve to go try New York City.
So Seattle Rep, and that was like you were just doing a rotation of plays.
Well, it wasn't actually a repertory company by the time I got my card there. It was one show at a time. So I got my equity card as an understudy in a production that I was never on stage in, and then worked at a few different. I worked at Seattle Rep a few other times in small roles, and at ACT there was a dinner theater there at the time, an equity dinner theater. So free food 8 times a week. That was
Yeah,
it was a great beginning, and really equipped me well for another. Even after I moved to New York, I was basically doing regional theater for another 7 or 8 years before I got my first Broadway show.
And when regional theater, generally those are, what characterizes it? Is it just accessible productions for older people in other? You bring it to them.
You're really selling it, man. Yeah.
Well, I hear it a lot.
It's not just the blue hairs. It's, look, every decent sized city in the country has professional theater going on with usually a combination of local actors and sometimes imported talent from New York, LA, whatever. I worked I went back to Seattle and did a show there. I worked in Atlanta, Boston, Buffalo.
But what would they
Albany.
hire? How did that work though? You would just get cast.
Yeah, they would have casting sessions in New York and L.A.
Right.
And I got to know enough different casting directors in New York got to know me that saw me in different ways. You know, one guy would see me as the musical leading guy. One guy saw me as a Shakespeare guy. Another person saw me as a So I actually was able to have a pretty well-rounded career as a theater actor and not get pigeonholed too much. And yeah, I mean, you'd go back to New York, you'd wait tables or 10 bar or whatever, and play softball in Central Park during the day and wait, for another audition and get a gig, go to Buffalo for, 4 weeks of rehearsal and a 4-week run, and then go back and do it all over again.
Yeah, I didn't mean to come off as condescending. I guess what I'm confusing certain things with, like regional theater it's real theater. Every city's got its theater, and it's usually 9 times out of 10 it's a well operated, sound structure. That some of them have been around forever, and they're just doing real shows. Like I think I'm confusing it with like in my mind it was dinner theater where you're doing some sort of shtick. With
yeah, well, which I certainly did. There was some dinner theater, as I already have confessed to, mixed in there, where I did. I played the third night from the left in Camelot, and also did a play, an old chestnut called Bell Book and Candle. But yeah, most of it was regional theaters, doing really good work. And believe me, well, not right now. I mean, right now, good Lord, stage actors are among, the most devastated group in this because there ain't no work for them. And you can't even go pick up a gig, tending bar or waiting tables. So,
right.
But in a non-COVID world, there's thousands of actors that most people haven't seen, making a living out there doing good work in regional theater.
And would you have considered yourself one of those actors for a good chunk of your life, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for 5 years in Seattle, and then another 13 years or so, and then I was a Broadway guy for 5 years. Really,
what were some of the big shows?
The first one, not a big one. It was a little musical called A Change in the Air, HEIR. Subtitled A Musical Tale of Good and Medieval.
Huh.
And that was the funniest part of the show.
The title.
Yes.
Okay.
It did not do well. In fact, the contract in those days, the production contract, the Broadway contract, you had a 4-week out. You could give 4 weeks notice,
right.
At least on the contract that we had.
Yeah.
And I ended up giving my 4 weeks notice 2 weeks before we opened, because the writing was on the wall. That was terrible. Among other notable things about it, though, was it was the first time my wife saw me, because the show was so terrible that they were papering the house, they call it, giving away free tickets to all the other Broadway shows to come on their night off. So my wife was doing Cats at the time, an actual Broadway show. And
I'll say
she was among the people who subjected themselves to an evening at A Change in the Air, and she saw this magnetic, incredibly good-looking, charismatic, sexy guy up there. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, then I did a big revival of Guys and Dolls with Jerry Zaks and Nathan Lane and Faith Prince and Peter Gallagher.
Oh, that was a big show. That was fun, right?
Oh, it was huge. Still some of the most fun I've ever had in the business or in life was rehearsals, really, and previews for that show, and sitting around with that group of hilarious people listening to Jerry give notes. And that was really, really, really fun. Yeah. And then I did A Few Good Men. I did the Peter Pan revival, which is where I finally met my wife, and Michelle Schumacher, by the way. I was Captain Hook and she was Tiger Lily.
Oh, there you go.
So we had a kind of an illicit romance going on there. And then a Neil Simon play, Laughter on the 23rd Floor, with with a really fun cast. Yeah.
That was about the writer's room, right?
It was loosely based on the old Sid Caesar writer's room. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was Nathan Lane. So Nathan and I did sort of 2 shows in a space of 3 years because we did Guys and Dolls and then Laughter together. It's a great cast. John Slattery and Lou Stadlin.
Oh, that guy's good. Yeah, yeah. Nathan's a great guy. I really like him.
Really, really great guy. And so, so unusual. I mean, almost unique that there's a guy who's like got a really, really great career as mostly a theater actor. I mean, obviously Nathan's done a lot of really great, TV and film stuff too, but to be, an actual theater star, is,
that's really his thing.
Such an unusual thing now. Yeah.
So now during all this Broadway time, you're going to auditions, right? For TV.
Well, yeah, no, not really. I mean,
no?
I was really happy to be where I was, and I'd never really even thought about a career in television or film. I did once Guys and Dolls hit, and we were like the hit of the century. It was crazy.
How long did that run? Like a year?
No, I ran like 4+ years. I mean, most of us end up leaving, for greener pastures after a while. And no matter how big a hit you're in, when you're doing your 414th performance, it's a little like punching the clock at the factory,
Is that how many you did?
I don't. Well, let's see. From the first rehearsal to when I left the show to move on was a year and a half. I probably did over 400 performances.
Oh my God! So how does that? How are you not like hearing that in your sleep?
Oh, dude! I mean, it gets into your head sometimes, and even with Laughter, which we did for like just under a year, 11 months, and then but still, that's almost 400 because you're doing 8 a week. So, and then I did on tour again. With my wife, Michelle Schumacher.
Well, that must have made it better.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, we're banking double per diem. Are you kidding me? We're shacked up. I mean, it was No, it was great. But it wasn't really until Laughter on the 23rd Floor, which was my last Broadway show in '94. Yeah. So I'm already pushing 40. And most of the people in that show, Nathan, John Slattery, Mark Lynn Baker, most of those actors had, theater and screen.
They'd done a lot of
careers.
television, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. And they were getting, mailbox money, as we call it, a residual check once in a while. And I was like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. So when that show put up the closing notice, I told my agent I didn't want to audition for any more plays. I wanted to see if we could get some film and TV going. And a couple of lucky breaks came along with an episode of Homicide, Life on the Street, Tom Fontana show that then led to Oz and Law and Order and all of that.
Well, I mean, what about it seems like if you live in New York and you've got any chops at all, you're going to end up on one of those procedurals at least a few times.
Oh, you read every playbill you go, you see, television includes Law and Order. Yeah.
What about the films? What was the first film?
The very first film was The Ref.
Dennis Leary's movie?
Dennis Leary film. And I had
was that John Demme? Did he direct that?
No, it was Ted Demme.
Ted,
His nephew.
I remember that because, that was a big break when, I'm a comic. So when he got that, we were all like, oh, man, Leary doing it all. Yeah.
No, it was his first big movie star thing.
Yeah.
And he was great in it. And it was a really terrifying and great experience because I was this, I'm this whatever 40-ish, average bald white guy. I don't look like it's my first rodeo, but I was like I was shot out of a cannon. Of course, Ted, the director is, I don't know how much younger than I was at the time, but grew up in the business and, even at that time felt like a seasoned pro. My scenes, some of my scenes were with like a 14-year-old actor who had done, 14 films. So it was a little bass-ackwards in many ways. But really fun experience. And Leary was great. He was a really great guy.
So the TV, though, it's interesting because I think my first memory of you, the one I can't get out of my head, I don't know if it's the first memory, but when you were tattooing a swastika on that guy's ass in a jail cell.
Wasn't that sweet?
Yeah. I mean, I'm never going to be able to shake that.
And this was my mother was so appalled because, and this didn't make the final cut because of a rights issue, I get. But I was as I was tattooing poor Beecher